Hello and welcome to the show, Your Real Estate Today. In today's show, we're going to be talking about my top 20 tips for investors. And Marty Ivey from Ivey Exterminating will be with us. And of course, Sandy Dickinson with Cross Country Mortgage to give her mortgage update. Stay tuned for a great show and enjoy us. And you can always get us at 846 Done, 846 3663, or on the web at myjamesonhomes.com. Hello, friends, and happy Saturday. We hope wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you are enjoying yourself on this Saturday. And thanks for spending your time with us. I'm your host, Paul Jameson. You've just tuned in to the show, Your Real Estate Today. And today is packed. We are loaded down with so much to talk about and so much to share with you. I don't know how we're going to do it in the next hour. But we're going to try. So whatever we don't finish today, we'll try to finish next time. But there's a lot to share, a lot to do. I've got Marty Ivey coming up later in the show. Marty and Sam will be with us, sharing with us what's going on around our home, under our home, and kind of sort of in our home. But also, Sandy Dickinson with Cross Country Mortgage is here to share her weekly mortgage update with us. And I think the news is probably pretty good, Sandy.
It probably is.
Probably pretty good, depending on when this airs. Hopefully, it'll be the same news.
Right.
But anyway, so much to talk about, so much to share. But here we go. We're going to talk about our what's going on, what I've learned this week. And just so you all know, you can certainly tune into us on Saturdays at 2, but also podcasts of every show is available on WBT.com under the shows tab. And if you want to see gestures, faces, expressions, a little after the show kind of stuff, you can go to the YouTube channel, Jameson Realty, that's Jameson with an I, and you can see us yakking, gesturing, and saying things you probably don't hear on the air as well. So let's just launch right into it. I'm going to say something that I learned this week, and I've been talking about that is a trap. And I want you all out there to hear me, because this trap is something that people are not paying attention to. And if your realtor is not paying attention to it, you need to help them pay attention. It's called the love letter trap. The love letter trap is going to get you. What the love letter is, just to be clear, is, let's say your house is on the market, you are the seller, and many buyers want to buy it. So what they do is they write you, some of them will write you a love letter. They will say, we can't wait to see our kid, Tommy and Sissy, grow up in your home. We can see them playing out in the yard, and we see that you had your children here too, and we love your home, and we want to live there, and we, our family is just perfect for this home, and trying to get your emotional tag to sell to them. And in a lot of cases, it works. It really does. People do care who they sell their home to. They really do. But let's say, for example, that in this multiple offer, a single person finds out that the reason their offer was not picked was because they were not a family, and that you chose a family over them. Well, that's going to be a problem, because you've just violated and discriminated based on what's called familia status. And you take the chance, buyer, agent, seller, of being sued. Now, there is a lot of buzz around that. And I personally now tell my clients, if I'm working with a buyer, I don't want you to write a love letter, because this is how I do business. One of the things that I think is not thought about in the relationship is the value of the agency relationship that you have with your realtor, or as friends of mine saying, realtor. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because in our industry, there are a lot of agents that do a lot of business, and there are a lot of agents that do a lot of business that don't do business in some of the same ways that others do. So the relationship between agents is very, very critical. And the relationship and experience you have with other agents is very critical. We're bound by a code of ethics, and we follow that code of ethics. And behavior is important in that transaction, but the relationship you have with the agent and the communication you have with the agent, I believe, is more important to winning the transaction and winning the deal than the love letter. So why put yourself at risk when, if you pick the right real estate agent, you have just as good, or quite frankly, a better chance of winning that deal? So think about that when you go into the real estate transaction or you make an offer. All right. Second, kind of along that same vein, be aware of what I call deceptive practices. Deceptive practices, and they were talking about it a lot this week, and there was an Inman article about deceptive practices. What you're potentially being offered by certain iBuyers for your home. iBuyers are those that say no showings, no open houses, no activities, other than you just come over, we give you a market evaluation, and we write you a check. Be aware that what number they initially give you may not be the number you end up with. So pay attention to those offers. I'm not saying don't pay attention or don't talk to them, but pay attention to what the actual number will be that you walk away with in the end, and ask those questions. And that's why I think representation from the realtor is so important. So think about those, and think about that as you go into this fall market. All right, Sandy.
Yeah.
What are you thinking in the mortgage updates?
Well, I'm thinking that we're really liking the rates right now. They dropped just a tad over this last week. Appreciation is up, according to CoreLogic, 15.4%. However, last year their prediction was it was going to be down 6.6%. So they were a little bit off. Now they're predicting for the next year it'll be up 3.4%. I think we're all thinking that they may be a little bit wrong about that too. It's probably still going to be higher than that.
Think so?
Only now. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think there's still a lot of pent-up demand. Forbearances are only 1.9 million right now, down 5% from last week. There were a lot of people thinking that they were going to cause a lot of foreclosure and problems, but it looks like it's unwinding gently. So, and 25% of those people are still making their payments. So we don't anticipate that being a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Mortgage apps are down 1%, but are they really? Because purchases aren't down because people are paying cash, 25% of them. And anyway, so things are steady Eddie at the moment. Rates are still good. Get them while they last. And call me if you need anything for a refi or purchase.
All right. If somebody wants to call you, Sandy, and they want to talk about a mortgage or a refi, and again, when you talk about those cash purchases, a lot of people are paying cash initially, and then they're coming back and refi, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they want to get the deal.
They do. They want to get the deal. How do they get in touch with you? And
They call my
talk about
mobile,
it more.
704-577-0144.
704-577-0144. Sandy Dickinson with Cross Country Mortgage. She is working on tons of things for my clients right now, and gotta love it. When she gets it done. So we love that, and we appreciate you, Sandy, for all your help. All right, so coming up today, we got something really unique. We've got my top 20 tips for investors, and then Marty and Sam Ivey. We never know exactly what he's going to talk about, but we know whatever it is going to be good. So you need to hang around for that. So much more to come. Thank you, Sandy. We'll talk to you next week, and look forward to more on Your Real Estate Today here on News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT. Welcome back to Show Your Real Estate Today. Hey, it's Paul Jameson, your host with the Jameson family of companies. That's Jameson Realty, Jameson Property Management, and Jameson Property Investments. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, we certainly would like to talk to you. And I'm here with my good friends Marty and Sam Ivey with Ivey Exterminating, and they continue to lead the charge in keeping our homes pest-free, clean-aired, and, as Sam has done for me on multiple occasions, rescue me from the nasty possum. So, always glad to have you guys with us. So, Marty and Sam, you brought up what you were going to talk about today, and we've never talked about this on the show in all these years. And it's drain flies.
That's right, Paul. Drain flies can be a real problem. We get a fair amount of calls this time of year, and some people confuse them with a fungus gnat as well, too. A drain fly typically is going to, just like its name, it's going to live in your drain. It's going to feed on the bacteria, organic matter that just builds up along the piping in your drains. There's a couple of good kind of home remedies you can try before you may end up need to call us. You can try Drano or some Clorox with some and baking soda combination. And what that does, you need to get the dual foaming kind of the Drano if you're going to try that approach, because what that'll do is that'll go down and that'll actually eat away at the organic matter that's in your plumbing lines and help clean them out so that the fungus, the drain fly, doesn't have anything to feed on. Typically, for most insects in general, when you take away their food source, they're gonna die and move on because there is nothing there for them to survive on. Drain flies can be incredibly hard to get control over sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
What a lot of people don't realize is kind of one of those things that's out of sight, out of mind. But the air handlers in our closets or in our crawl spaces or in our attics, sometimes they'll back up in the drain pan and you'll get organic matter that builds up in there. And those drain flies can actually live in habitat in those drain pans. Those P-traps and condensation lines, if you don't clean those out on a regular basis, it's a perfect breeding ground for them to come take place and live in there. When it gets pretty severe, you can literally have them in the hundreds coming out. We had one customer had a drain line snaked, and the plumbers didn't put the cast iron lid back on properly, and it actually stripped the threads out. And the drain flies got in there and started breeding, and the homeowner ended up with literally hundreds and hundreds of drain flies that were coming out of this cap. And it took a couple of trips before we finally got them under control and got the customer happy. But it is something this time of year that you want to be on the lookout. And, in those drain pans and the air handler, something easy you can do if you got a pool, grab one of those chlorine tablets. You can put it in that drain pan. It'll help knock them out. Again, you can try the Drano route for your kitchen sinks or your bathroom sinks. And if you need more help, you can give us a call and we can come take care of you.
What's the life cycle of those things?
The life cycle is typically going to be pretty short for them. But you know, they will breed so rapidly that's where your numbers get out of control. You know, just like with a fly, a fly's typical life cycle is not going to be much more than about 30 to 45 days. But within that life cycle, that female fly can lay anywhere from 400 to 500 eggs. And she only needs to mate with a male once. And so a lot of these insects have very short life cycles, but their ability to reproduce and populate exponential numbers, you know, because if you have a female fly and then in one whack she lays 100 eggs, and those 100 eggs, let's say 50 of them are females, and you can exponentially can have a problem get out of control very, very quickly. So sanitation is big with these flying insects. With the house fly, you need to make sure you're keeping trash cans clean. A lot of times, especially when you go on vacations, you got VRBOs. The trash cans are just a wreck, and they're a constant breeding ground for flies. We just got back on vacation, and I had to deal with that problem while I was on vacation because trash cans were so dirty with just everybody throwing stuff in there. You know, once a week, once a month, flip that trash can up, clean it out with some Clorox bleach. You know, everybody has, because of COVID, has migrated outdoors, which is great. And they've really spent a lot of time and money building outdoor kitchens. And one of the big problems with these outdoor kitchens is you're not going behind, customers aren't going behind and cleaning up the grease from the briskets and the Boston butts that they're smoking out there, and the steaks and all that good food that we love to enjoy. And the fly is going to, when she lays those eggs, she's going to lay it on a food source immediately, so that when those eggs hatch and become that maggot stage, they immediately have a food source that they can feed on. Once that female fly lays her eggs, those eggs can hatch anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. And once they become a maggot, they're gonna transition within about 3 to 4 days of that to become a mature fly. So that sanitation key is really, really important. And not to mention just the fact of trying to keep your doors and windows closed during those times when you're going in and out of the house to avoid those flying insects from getting into your house and becoming a nuisance.
I tell you that I had a client who had a barn, and I had some horses growing up, and flies were, you know, just a rampant issue in the barn. But this person's barn was fly free, and she had horses in that barn. It's because she kept that barn spotless, and there was no food source for those flies to live off of. So you're right, it's about the food, right?
Well, it's not only about the food, but it's about sanitation too. You know, it's like Sam said, that's a key ingredient in everything. And you know, from our end, from the pesticide maintenance end of it, the chemical maintenance end of it, it plays a part of it. But if we're not getting cooperation with sanitation end of it, you're not going to achieve satisfactory control. The problem you get into in the kitchen areas, with a lot of kitchen areas, is there's grease within those traps, and those flies will sometimes get in those traps and lay eggs, and you get layers of grease over them. And you're not going to get anything to get that out of there until you get that grease out of there. They make, you know, they make degreasing agents you can put in drains to knock them out, but until you get that grease out of there and get those layers that protect those eggs from anything hazard, you're not going to be able to get satisfactory control. You go in commercial buildings, and you got people watering plants too much, rooting plants. A lot of people root plants at their offices. They just create a ton of issues. And then if you've got an inefficient or an improperly working heat and air system, and you get condensation in the air ducts, they'll get in the air ducts, and then you really got challenges with that to try to get that under control.
Yeah, I mean, and Marty and Sam, you guys were involved at our house. We had a plant that was and we couldn't figure out where the bugs were coming from. And as it turned out, these little, I remember putting them in a bag and taking pictures of them so you guys could figure out what the heck they were. And as it turned out, one of you guys, I can't remember, was you, Sam, or you, Marty, that came over and go, it's coming from that plant over there, Paul. Don't get rid of the plant.
Yeah. You know, one of the things a lot of homeowners will do too is they'll try to deal with the problem themselves, and they'll go to the big box stores and they'll get those fly traps. Well, what they don't realize is those fly traps are really designed to be hung about 5 to 6 feet off the ground, a good ways away from your property, because it's attracting flies to that trap. And inevitably what we see happen is they'll put them next to their grilling area or the house because they're trying to catch them. And what they don't realize is those flies bypass those traps and then end up in the house. So, you know, you really got to do your due diligence to get control on this stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we've got more to come with Marty and Sam Ivey. And after the break, I'm going to start the list of 20 tips for investors, and we'll get through as many as we can, but we've got more to come. What's flying, what's moving, and talking about the crawl space too. More with Your Real Estate Today here on News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT. Don't go anywhere. Hey, welcome back to the show, Your Real Estate Today. Paul Jamison, your host, owner of the Jamison family of companies. That's Realty, Property Management, and Property Investment, here with Marty and Sam Ivey with Ivey Exterminating. They have been serving our market since 1954. So glad that you're with us, and glad you're spending some time with us on your Saturday afternoon. And we thank you for that. If you want to reach Ivey Exterminating, you can get them at 704-334-1616 or bugivey.com. Well, before I launch into my 20 tips at the break, Sam was playing with something we could see on the screen. And so, being nosy like I am, I just asked him, what you messing with? And he said, I'm messing with a dry wood termite. And I'm like, what's a dry wood termite as opposed to a wet wood termite, which I did not know. So instead of just breezing it over, let's talk about it. Marty, you want to share what you shared with me during the break?
Homeowner purchased this house in 2019, had a home inspection. Home inspection did not provide a wood storing insect inspection. And the homeowner was doing, the home buyer was doing a walkthrough through the home and saw some wings, a bunch of wings and dead insects in a second-story bathroom. Was concerned it might be termites. Obviously, the homeowner has to be, prospective homeowner had to be pretty sharp to see it. But she saw these dead insects on the floor and inquired about it. Her realtor hired a company to come out and issue a WDIR, Wood Destroying Insect Information Report, and to identify these insects. Came out, looked at the house, did an inspection of the house, issued a report, and issued that didn't have any findings or didn't find any wood destroying insects. The prospective buyer inquired about the dead insects. Supposedly the termite inspection company was not us. Some other inspection company in town went up and looked at it and said they were flying ants. A year later, she comes back in the bathroom and finds these dead insects in the bathroom again, goes on and does some investigation on her own and makes a determination, amazingly makes a determination. Not only are they drywood, not only are they termites, but they're drywood termites, which is not an insect that's common to this area. Very difficult to find on an inspection when you're not having any preliminary issues with them, because the only detection you can typically find of them, if they're not swarming, which they rarely swarm, is their frass, which makes it looks like sand on the floor, and it's little pellets, little tiny pellets. It's very in little small clumps of them. She called, after some investigation, she called her realtor. The realtor, for some reason, referred her to the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture came out and looked at it, did an investigation. This exterminator claiming that he does have no knowledge of ever talking to this buyer And because of the time lapse of what's going on here, she's basically going to be stuck with dealing with this problem. She removed the cabinet. They were in a cabinet. The cabinet had been replaced. The vanity in the bathroom had been replaced, and they were brought in the vanity. And it's something that we've seen several times, approximately 3 times in the last couple of years. It's an odd thing that's happened, but in this case, they've removed the vanity and they have transferred. Now another time lapse is going by, and they have transferred into the plywood flooring under the vanity, which now she's going to have to do some treatment, and treatments kind of can be complicated with this particular insect. And she worst case scenario may have around a $15,000 to $19,000 treatment cost, or she may take an experimental treatment that will be less invasive and probably get out for a fraction of that, and with no warranty. And it's a sad state of affairs that I can't put the timeline together for her totally. Unfortunately, I cannot put the timeline, or there's the suspicions I've got. But if those insects was there originally, somebody should have been able to identify what they were and addressed it. The driveway.
They've done some eating.
Sir?
They've done some eating.
Yeah, the problem that we're going to see is we're going to see more and more of this in this area, because there's, with limited supply of wooden materials now, the cost of materials have gone up. They're going to start outsourcing these high-end plywood materials from outside the United States, and it's going to become more and more of an issue. We would probably see it, like I say, we've seen it 3 times in the last couple of years, and prior to that, I've seen it once or twice in my lifetime. That just shows you how the problem stepped up. But we understand they're now starting to show up in some pre-finished wood flooring, and it's going to become more and more of a concern.
Definitely. Thank you, Marty. Sam. All right. So one of the things I wanted to do today is I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about some tips for investors. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now, you'd think, gosh, in this tight real estate market, what room is there for an investor to purchase a home or have a home that's a good investment? Well, let me tell you right now that if people can't find a home, what do they got to do? Rent. Rents are up right now 7.3%. And the demand for rentals and the vacancy rate is stupidly low. And if you are an investor, boy, if the numbers work, buy it because you can rent it. And that's just, it's a tremendous opportunity. But a lot of people ask me, can you give me some guidelines? And of course, I wrote a book called Opportunity is Knocking. Some of these ideas are in the book. You can buy it directly from pauljamison.com, and I'll send you a signed copy, or you can get on Amazon Prime and they'll ship it to you in a couple of days. It's the same price. But anyhow, it gives you kind of an introduction to that market, and I think it would be an enjoyable read for you. But let's just talk about a few things. Number one, if you're interested in investing in real estate, or let's say you have a primary home, you've moved and you've got your primary home and you're trying to decide what to do with it, what to fix, how to fix it, you may want to make it a rental. Because right now that cash flow could be certainly a way to balance your portfolio or balance your income. But the premise of number one is start with one. If you don't have rentals, you don't have experience in rentals. And, I own a property management company. That's what we're here for, is to take the owner through that process. But even if you want to do it on your own, start with one. Buy one. Buy one house, fix it, rent it, get people to sign the leases, understand what the process looks like, understand the good and the bad of it, get in there and do it. But do it with one, so that if you decide at some point this is not the thing for you, you don't have 20. You have one. So I always tell people, start with one. Now, when you start with one, there are many different ways to start with one. For example, a lot of new investors or people that are concerned about repairs or issues buy new construction. New construction is a good way to, for the next 5 years, really minimize any of the out-of-pocket repairs that you would have on major items that are warranted. HVAC, roof, hot water heater, plumbing. Most of the new homes come with a warranty or a 210 warranty that covers a lot of those things, or the manufacturer's warranty on items that are purchased in the home. So start with a new construction. If you want to take it a layer farther, buy a townhome where an HOA or a condo association covers all the exterior maintenance and you're from the walls in. Condos, as you know, you're buying air, so a lot of that maintenance is covered, but the HOA fees are typically higher. And if you've read my book, I have varying opinions on condos as a piece of rental property, depending on where they are, whether they're vacation rental properties or whether they're a rental property you have in a portfolio. But discussion for another day. All right. So start with one, look at new construction, and also think about this rule. Dumpy and scary in many areas really is dumpy and scary. So if you're getting into this for the first time and you're looking at that, don't go dumpy and scary, because dumpy and scary is dumpy and scary. So just saying. All right. Next, you don't live there. What is he saying? Well, when you buy a piece of investment property, you don't live there. You're not buying it for you to live there. You're buying it for a renter to live there. So think about the amount of rent that that person's going to pay. Think about the type of person that will more than likely rent it. Don't categorize, generalize. And what things are important to them. So look at that as an opportunity to look at the decision and the things that you would do to improve the property. Not every house has to have granite. Well, we've got a hard break. There are more tips to come, but they're going to come on the show Your Real Estate Today. Marty and Sam Ivey with Ivey Exterminating, myself, Paul Jameson with the Jameson family of companies, sharing Saturday with you on News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show Your Real Estate Today. Hope you all think my guitar lessons are worth it. I'm getting a little bit better. That's about as many chords as I could play. Just kidding. This is Paul Jameson. Welcome to the show Your Real Estate Today. We're glad you're with us here with Marty and Sam Ivey with Ivey Exterminating. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us. If you need to call us, you're buying, selling, or investing, 846-DONE, 846-3663, or on the web at myjamesonhomes.com. Going through some top 20 tips for investors. I got through start with one. New construction is an option. Dumpy and scary is dumpy and scary, and you don't live there, so don't remodel to your taste. Remodel to the tenant's taste and be mindful of the dollars you do spend. You want to provide a nice home for someone, but remember, you do not live there. All right, next, don't use a realtor that does not understand investing. There are some fabulous realtors in this marketplace. Many are my friends and very, very sharp, savvy, and do a good job when it comes to buying and selling your primary home. Investing is a different ballgame. It's an unemotional, analytical, well thought out, thoroughly analyzed purchase. So if you're looking at investing in property, you think about many things just above and beyond it because you're not living there. And that's critical to that. So I want to make sure that you think about that as you look at that with your realtor. Make sure they understand investing. Ask them if they own investment property. Ask them if they do, how long have they had it? Ask them if they do, how do they analyze a piece of property? Ask those questions because it's really critical as you look at who you're working with to make that purchase. All right. Next, as someone who owns a property management company, I'm about to tell you something that may shock you. Have that investor, if this is your first investment, if you are the investor, you need to manage that property yourself for a while. What do you mean? You do that, Paul. You can do that for us. Yes, and I'm happy to. But if you really want a taste of the investment business, you take the calls at 2 a.m. for a while to go change a light bulb. And understand the business. Now, many people bypass that piece of advice because of the contracts, because of other liabilities, and because they just don't want to do it. They just want to get mailbox money and go to the mailbox and there's money in it. So if you do self-manage, you need to understand how to protect yourself, because if you don't follow certain rules, I will tell you, renters know the rules better than you will. And make sure your lease is not something off the internet, but something that is truly lock, stock, and barrel, strong, protective, and covers you. For example, I have shared with Marty and Sam many, many times that we have a tremendous amount of addendums that go along our lease. Addendums are attachments. We actually have, as an addendum to our leases, what's called a spice addendum. Why, per se, do we have a spice addendum? Well, many of our tenants like to cook, and they like to cook spicy food. And a lot of times people don't understand the spices in those spicy foods are worse than the damage caused by smoke. And that if you don't properly ventilate, or you do not properly handle how those spices are used, it's one thing to cook, burn toast or bacon, right? It's another thing to burn with some of those spices or not properly ventilate or cook over and over and over with the same spices. And it doesn't just get absorbed by their furniture. It gets absorbed by the walls, the carpet, the wood trim, and other materials, construction materials. And it's not easy to come out. So we have a spice addendum, believe it or not, amongst many, many others. Bed bugs, which, Marty, we've talked about multiple times on the show. We have a bed bug addendum because the bed bugs, once you get, we haven't done the bed bug show in a long time. Maybe we ought to do that next month. Because when Marty does the bed bug show, oh my, the last time it creeped me out. So I guess I'm due for a creeping out, but I got through about 5 of them, of the tips. So I guess I'll continue them to another show. But Marty, the crawl space right now, and you and I talked about this on a live show a while ago. The crawl space right now is hopping with activity.
Crawl space care is something as we've talked about before, Paul. It's you've stated it's affecting about 72% of the transactions that you're involved in. It's the number one factor that we're seeing right now about people becoming more and more concerned about air quality inside the home. And air quality, in most cases, the minimum of what you're breathing inside your house, at minimum 40% of it, if you're on a crawl space, is coming from the crawl space. And so people spending more time home now with COVID, they have become more and more concerned about air quality. And it's something that we used to get very few calls on, and now we're getting a lot of calls on them. And air quality is directly affected by hot, humid air coming into the crawl space and causing microbial growth on the wooden substructure in the crawl space. Microbial growth occurs on organic substance. Wood's an organic substance. It will actually grow on dust. So if you've got dust on things in the crawl space, it'll start to grow on the dust. is something that this time of year is hard to find. When I say an uncontrolled crawl space, a crawl space that's been exposed to the open air, it's hard to find a crawl space that's not having sweating conditions in the crawl space area. And that's from hot, humid air coming into the crawl space, condensating on colder temperatures, basically a result of a dew point. It occurs on air ducts. If you've got air ducts in your crawl space, a lot of times this time of year, your air ducts will start sweating. You can look at your air ducts and they are becoming transparent, or where you can actually start to see through them. If you've got flex ducts, that actually is an indicator that those air ducts are sweating heavily during the summer months. And once this moisture levels arise in the crawl space, when they get 18% or higher, microbial growth can occur. And once it gets in the crawl space, you start to have a reaction referred to as thermal cooling. When the insulation gets wet, it will off gas and drop the temperature, floor temperature, down anywhere from 8 to 10 degrees. And when that occurs, it just sucks more hot, humid air in the crawl space. It's a reoccurring snowball effect problem that we see in a bunch of crawl spaces. The best way to rectify that is to seal your foundation vents, put a 100% vapor barrier and a dehumidifier in the crawl space. If you get microbial growth to occur, in most cases, you may have to remove the insulation and scrub the timbers in the crawl space and put a microbial growth remover on it. And it's a labor-intense process. It's something that we're doing a lot of now, and it's going to become more and more of an issue. Right now is the best time to have your crawl space looked at, because this is when these problems are starting to elevate right now. And they're going to get worse during the next 2 to 3 months. And then after we get through the summer and the temperatures start to temper down and the dew points start to temper down, these moisture levels will reduce. But if you're smelling a musty odor, when you see a musty or smell a musty odor in a crawl space, that tells you that there's microbial and it is emitting an enzyme that's breaking down some type of material crossing an odor, and it's something that you need to have looked at. You can call us at 704-334-1616 or bugivey.com.
Yeah, Marty and Sam, I want to make sure we got the number. We're down to the last 30 seconds or so. If they want to have that crawl space looked at, I want to make sure they get with you. You did mine this week.
Yep. You can reach us at 704-334-1616 or bugivey.com. Woo! I'm going to get me some bugs.
I'm going to check out your crawl space.
I'm going to check out that crawl space.
All right. Well, if you need us at Jameson, we'd love to talk to you. Realty, property management, or property investments. It's 846-DONE, 846-3663, or on the web at myjamesonhomes.com. Thanks, guys. God bless. Talk to you next week. The show, Your Real Estate Today. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.